Now we're going to talk about teams that may surprise us in the second half of the NBA season. The All-Star break just happened. I think we're returning back to basketball on Thursday. That's the first game that's going to be scheduled. And what teams are going to surprise you, or do you think will surprise you in the second half of the season? In this segment, I don't want to hear teams that are number one seed already. So I don't want to hear, Philadelphia, Utah, Clippers, Lakers, under those. I want to hear some sleeper teams. What are some sleeper teams that you have?
So the first one I went with was the Miami Heat, which is kind of like not as much of a sleeper as I think you would have liked to hear, but just because what they went through in the first half of the season, I think a lot of people are down on them right now, but they were dealing with injuries the entire first half. They didn't really get into a rhythm at any point. And when they did start to get into a semi-rhythm, you saw them start to turn things around a little bit. And now they're already back up to 6th when they were like at 13th in the conference a couple of weeks ago, I think. So now that they're starting to get healthy, if they can get into a rhythm, I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year, but I definitely think they will become a playoff lock. I think they could become a top 4 seed eventually by the end of the season if they remain healthy. So I think that's a team that could turn it around in the second half. Another team that is pretty high in the seeding, but I think will surprise some people in the second half is the Charlotte Hornets. I love LaMelo Ball in the starting lineup. I think they're starting to put a couple things together, and I think that addition of LaMelo to the starting lineup is improving the play of everybody on that roster. Although they're young, I like them in the second half, and I think that they're going to be another team that's going to be a playoff lock.
While researching for this segment, I had to look at strength of schedule, and that had to be a factor. These are the five teams with the easiest strength of schedule moving forward. The Utah Jazz are 1. The Dallas Mavericks are 2. The Brooklyn Nets are 3. The Miami Heat are 4, and the Denver Nuggets are 5. For my sleeper team, I have 2 in particular that are on this list. The Dallas Mavericks are 1. They're 18-16. They are 8th seed right now. But to start the season, they were crippled by COVID and injuries. They are just starting to get healthy. Porzingis missed 13 games. Maxi Kleber missed 11. Josh Richardson and Finney Smith missed 8 games. And now they're finally healthy. Just before the All-Star break when they faced Orlando, they had a starting lineup of Luka, Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, and Kristaps Porzingis. So they're all healthy, and Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the bench is really huge for them. I think he fits that role perfectly. He's going to do kind of what Terrence Ross does in Orlando, play that bench role and just come off the bench and score. And Jalen Brunson is a starting point guard in the league, and he plays really great for the Mavericks night in and night out. And we can't forget about Trey Burke and the spark that he brings. Dwight Powell is also out there. And so I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to have a great second half to the NBA season. They're 8th seed right now. The Warriors are outside looking in. They're the 9th seed. It's really hard to say that the Warriors are going to make the playoffs if the Mavericks are healthy and they're starting to find a groove. Unless San Antonio drops out. Unless San Antonio drops out. But the Golden State Warriors may miss the playoffs if the Mavericks start to catch fire, and I think they will catch fire. Then you look at the Denver Nuggets. They're 21-15. They're the 6th seed, but Gary Harris has missed 17 games. P.J. Dozier has missed 15. JaMychal Green has missed 11. Millsap and Porter Jr. have missed 10 each. And right now they have 3 key injuries still. JaMychal Green has a shoulder injury. Paul Millsap is dealing with a knee injury. And Gary Harris is still dealing with a thigh. There is no real legit timetable for their return. I'm not sure when they're going to come back. But when they're healthy, when the Nuggets are healthy, you got a lineup of Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Michael Porter Jr., or Will Barton, whoever you want to slide in there, Paul Millsap, Nikola Jokic. Then off the bench, Monte Morris, Will Barton, JaMychal Green, P.J. Dozier, and Campazzo. And Hartenstein is playing pretty well. This team is legit, and everybody is sleeping on them because they haven't been healthy all year. The record doesn't really show how good the Denver Nuggets are, and we can't forget about Nikola Jokic. If the Denver Nuggets start to catch fire and they start to get a higher seed, they're only 2.5 games behind the 3rd seed. We might be hearing more rumblings about a Nikola Jokic MVP because the Nuggets are starting to win. I just hope that Gary Harris returns. So does Paul Millsap and JaMychal Green. More so Gary Harris, though, because I think he does a really great job on defense and he spaces the floor really well. I would like to see them back, but when they're healthy, they are a dangerous team.
Now, let me ask you something, because this is something I was trying to look for when I was researching. If you had to choose one team right now that's out of the playoffs to make the playoffs, who would it be? Because I was struggling with this one. I think the playoff teams right now look pretty good.
The Warriors would be my first pick in the West. And the East were the ones that are outside looking in.
So it's the Bulls at 9, then the Pacers, the Hawks, the Wizards, the Cavs, the Magic, and the
Pacers
Pistons.
would be my other pick.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
The Knicks actually have one of the hardest schedules in the second half of the year.
You think they're not going to make it?
No, I didn't say that. I just said they have the hardest schedule in the second half of the season. They have one of the hardest schedules.
The East is so tight. I mean, from like even the Celtics at 4 all the way until the Hawks really, or the Wizards at 14 and 20. Like, there is not that big of a gap. It's only like a 5-game difference between all of those teams. So.
And you mentioned the other team, the Miami Heat. Over the last 15 games, they have had the number 1 ranked defense in the NBA. So they're playing well, and unlike the Nuggets, the Miami Heat are healthy now. They're only missing Avery Bradley, which he's a good piece.
He's a luxury.
But the Lakers won a championship without him last season. It wasn't like Avery Bradley was make or break for the Lakers. I don't think he's make or break for the Miami Heat. So the Miami Heat are finally healthy. Their core is healthy. Because of that, I think they'll make a really good run in the second half of the season. But I think at the end of the year, we're going to talk about the Mavericks, the Nuggets, and Miami, and talk about them and say, wow, people were wrong about the Mavericks and the Heat especially because of their slow starts. Everybody kind of had them missing the playoffs. Same thing with the Raptors. The Raptors solidified their spot a little bit earlier, but people were still down on the Mavericks and the Heat. And now that they're really kicking it up, you're not really hearing that chatter anymore, especially now. When the season is over, everybody's going to look back at now and be like, why did we think they were going to miss the playoffs?
And it's funny. It happens like pretty much every year. There's one team that gets out of the gate slow, but it's happened to multiple teams this season, and I think that has a lot to do with the landscape of the NBA since a year ago and how different things have been. You don't understand how much of a rhythm these guys are in with their bodies, and when you start to change that rhythm, it takes a toll on their bodies. So the fact that so many teams have been able to come back healthy is impressive, but it's no surprise to me at all that a couple of teams at least have gotten off to tough starts with injuries and stuff like that affecting them.